What's going on? We're live, YouTube. I wanted to jump in and do a little live video on how I start a song because I find that songwriting is kind of like a lost art, right? Nowadays, people are just kind of making tracks or making beats and then just coming into the studio and blabbering on them and freestyling over them and humming and doing all sorts of stuff. First of all, I want to say there's nothing wrong with that. But I do want to talk about a little bit of the thought process behind starting a song. What are the first things I think about, or, a songwriter might think about as they're starting something out, whether they're playing a keyboard or they're playing a piano or guitar, or they're just starting with a melody or a lyric idea. Starting a song can be different for everybody. For every genre, it's a little different. I'm going to focus a little bit more on sort of a pop alternative, indie pop, synth pop kind of aspect of this, right? Because that's sort of the style that I get into and that I like. So I like to talk about stuff that I know about, right? Or that I actually do, rather than something I'm not really too familiar with. Now, I've obviously produced, stuff for hip hop artists, trap records, R&B records, pop records, stuff for movies, stuff for TV, stuff for commercials. All sorts of different records and all sorts of different styles, from 90-piece orchestral things to very poppy, cheesy sugar stuff like I was a big part of the production on Everything Is Awesome for the Lego Movie. So I just kind of want to talk about the starting point, the essence of songwriting starts, right? Where do you start? Where do you go? How do you get the ideas? How do you keep the flow going? Some tips and tricks for you guys as well, because I think it's so important to making a quality record, right? So the songwriting is maybe more important than anything, right? Because if you can just sing a song a cappella and it's a great song, has a great melody, great lyrics, can tell a story, suck in a listener, keep a listener's retention, then, you can put it on any sort of accompaniment. You can put it on just a piano, guitar. You can do it on a full production. It won't matter, right? If it's a good song, it's a good song, is what they say, right? So anyone just joining, let me know if you have any questions along the way. All good. I'm here to answer questions. I'm here to help you with your songwriting. I've written songs and helped write songs, co-written, co-produced songs, all sorts of stuff. Grammy nominated, Oscar nominated, Emmy nominated, stuff that sold 1 million records or more. So, I feel like I'm a little bit, I guess I'm willing and able to talk on this from a professional standpoint, rather than just someone that writes songs and never had anything successful happen with my songs that I've worked on. I've had a lot of success in music and in writing songs. So I've even had songs that I've written for Lexus commercials that have made me a lot of money and gone on to collect a lot of royalties and were fun, right? So that's what it's all about, really. In the beginning and end, it's like music. You get into music producing, songwriting because you love it, you enjoy it. It's something you would do even if no one was ever paying you. So you do it for free. All right, so I'm going to just kind of dive into Logic Pro here and share my screen. So Logic Pro is really kind of my main writing tool. I'd say I just use it a lot because it's something that I can write on. It does MIDI well. It does mixing, mastering well. The buses well. It does, MIDI instruments and handles those well. Also audio editing. I don't like the audio aspect and the audio editing as much in Logic as I do in Pro Tools. But you can also score films in Logic Pro much easier than you can in Pro Tools, right? In Pro Tools, you need HDX rigs and a bunch of cards and accelerator cards and stuff to handle that kind of workload. And a lot of people talk about Pro Tools being the industry standard. That's just because a lot of the editing happens in Avid Media Composer. So it's not because it sounds better or anything like that. But of course, everybody has their own opinion, right? A lot of people are like, yeah, FL Studio sounds way better than everything else. And Ableton sounds better. No, Logic sounds better. Pro Tools. It's use whatever you like, right? So the DAW is obviously a huge aspect of songwriting, modern songwriting, right? But here's something I want to be really clear on is you don't need a whole lot of tools. You can write a song with anything, like with a voice, a microphone. You can write a song with literally samples, putting together loops, whatever you want, really. So this is just something I mocked up a while ago. I'm going to actually drag all this stuff over. And I'm just going to kind of show you like the process of writing a song for me. First of all, I want to I don't really need to have an idea of like what I'm going to write. I usually try to think first about tempo. So if you got a tempo in mind, like maybe you're like, okay, I want to do like a mid-tempo thing, or maybe I want to do like a more up-tempo thing, a driving thing, etc. That can be kind of your starting point. Sometimes I'll open a session like this and I will grab, say, the drums from it, and I'll move the drums over, right? I'll copy the drums over, and I will have a drum pattern. So I have something to start with, like just a foundational thing. And let's get rid of this little pickup thing here. And let's just like listen to this loop. And you can easily do this like with splice, with anything, right? Like just coming up with something to start with. A lot of people like to start with melody. Sometimes I start with drums. Sometimes I start with chord progression. It just depends. It really depends on the vibe and how I'm feeling. And that's how songwriting should be. It should be experimental. It should be something that, I like to keep sounds around me. Like I have a Prophet in front of me where, I can just play sounds off of it, and I can get inspired. I can tweak the knobs, and maybe I come up with a chord progression or an ARP or a sound that I like, and I'll start off of that, right? Like you just need a vibe. And great songwriting is not about being musically technical. Great songwriting is really about having a taste level, right? Just you have taste, you know what you want to hear, you know how to get to it, or you know what you would add to it that would make it cool, right? Some of the greatest songwriters, producers in the world, and most successful, don't know shit about music theory. Right? Let's be really real with this video. But again, if you guys have any questions along the way, just drop them in the comments and I will get to them and try to answer them as I'm going. So the first thing I would do in Logic is like, let's just play this. This is just like a drum pattern. So really cool. It's kind of like more upbeat. It feels a little bit like more vintage. I could grab a guitar, I could grab a bass, I could grab whatever, just to break down kind of like how I made this loop, this drum pattern. I dragged in samples that I liked, right? Like there's a kick. I then kind of tweaked them. I gave it a little compression, gave it a little tape saturation, gave it a little EQ, right? So I'm just kind of making it a little more punchy. A little fatter. So if I turn all that stuff off, it sounds like this. So there you go. I'm like trying to make a like kind of more vintage, sounds like it came out of a drum machine kind of kick, right? And then that's it's bussing over to a Kramer Pi, Abbey Road vinyl kind of thing. So I was going for a dated sound, like that's the idea, right? Like a retro kind of vibe. So that's kind of the vibe I had with that, and I wanted it to sound like as I produce, I usually mix as I go, just because I'm a mixing engineer as well. Like it's just something I have to do. I want to get the vibe right. And then here I got this snare, and I put some crazy verb on it that has like a little feedback. I think this is a clap actually. Right, so it kind of gives it like a little danceability. It's like, it's like kind of a little feel to it, right? So I like that vibe of it. But anyway, I put together everything separately. I programmed everything, played it in on the keyboard for the most part, because that's what I like to do when I produce. And then typically, like this hats, I actually I actually made these hats with the Prophet 6 here. Okay, so this is going to be actually all analog, right? So let's check this out. So it just gives it some pace, right? Some and it just kind of quickens up the chorus, and I like that vibe. I like the idea of changing things up. And then also there's a crash in here. It's just a sample. I put Super VHS on it. You can see like a lot of the plugins I'm using are to make it sound kind of more vintage, more 80s, more vibey, right? So the Super VHS is a cool plugin for that. And then on the hats, yeah, I got nothing on there because it's just straight off the Prophet 6. I programmed those hats. And then, yeah, all those together coming into this kind of chorus thing. It could even be a pre-chorus, but this is what this sounds like. Right, just some excitement, some crashes, some cymbals, some vibe there. So with songwriting, like this is great. I got drums, but you really need like something, you know, you need some harmonic structure. You need something. You need like maybe a chord progression or something. So just to like show you, there's so many different ways to write a song, right? But you know, in this case, you could grab a bass, you could grab a guitar, you could grab a MIDI instrument, you can open up Contact and play some chords in, etc. You could even go like, yo, I'm going to jump into Splice and find like some chords, right? Like very, very simple stuff. Like, let's see, we'll go to like keys, right? Just go to keys, and then, you know, sometimes you just find like actual just chords separate. So let's hear this. So like literally I could take these samples and just start pulling them in. So like this is a good one to start with. It's a C major 7. It's very soulful, very moody, so it might be really interesting against these drums. But I just mess around, you know. Even like it's cool because like some of this walks, but so just like start dragging in these chords. And like literally like just find a progression, you know. So you go into whatever grid you're on, like you can have this, you know, playing. You know, just start putting together some sort of progression. I even feel like maybe you could start with like looking for something that's going to be a little bit more to the tempo, right? Okay, so you can grab chords like that. You can literally just start putting in chords and you can design something. Now, because like I have like a bunch of like, I don't usually use Splice for melodies or chords or things like that. I usually use Splice for like drum sounds, effects sounds, transitions, things like that. Just because Splice is it's becoming a shaky, murky area, especially if you're doing like sync licensing or you're making records and someone else has used that splice loop or melody before you, your shit could get flagged. So that's just a heads up. But so like right now, maybe I think like this track with the drums, I would try some bass stuff, right? So I would just open up something like a, like a contact instrument. And Contact's amazing. Like if you guys don't have Contact, you got to get Contact. It's just it's almost like a requirement to have Contact because you can open up so many instruments. You have like electric basses, you have strings, you have horns, you have everything. And some of the most realistic samples that you're going to find in sample libraries that you're going to find because they're real, truly like deeply sampled things, right? I mean, I live and breathe Contact, you know, I'm a composer as well. So like constant thing is finding right sounds. So like in here, I just like, you can also search up here, which I love, is just look for a bass. The Rickenbacker bass is amazing. Like come in here, like here's a palm muted Rickenbacker bass and, grab your MIDI keyboard, or if you don't have a MIDI keyboard, you can draw in MIDI notes. Now I think I'm going to go with not the palm muted bass, but the regular bass. Right, so there you go. And then you got little presets here where you can like change the actual vibe of them. Like you got a British setting, which is much more rock and roll. Now I'm looking kind of like for like an indie pop kind of vibe. So I think this Halloween's preset is really cool. So like what I do in here is I just start like vibing on the track, like literally just give myself, like a 16 bar loop or something. And I'm always thinking in my head, like, when it comes to songwriting, I'm always have that idea in my head that I need lyrics. I need like a vibe, right? So like, I start thinking about things like dancing or like going out or like Saturday night or like, weekend or, maybe it's more like a heartbreak, or maybe it's like a midnight escape. Like I like little concept ideas as I'm going, and I think like having concepts before you start is really, really powerful with songwriting, because if you're like, okay, I like the idea of like a midnight escape, and like you're my escape, or you're my midnight, you're my midnight craving. I mean, that's cheesy, but you got to have some taste level to it. But like thinking about a concept before you just start plugging and writing or producing is really important, right? So I start thinking about that like right away. So I'm just going to kind of like put down a bass line. I don't know. I mean, simple progression. Here's another thing about MIDI, like who cares if you hit the wrong note, right? You just come in here and fix it. Like there's no rules to this. Don't worry about like songwriting. The most important thing is like don't worry about it sounding awesome coming off your fingers. Like straight up. Don't worry about shit. Just be creative, right? So it's easy to fix. It's like, okay, there you go. And then so now I got like a little bass line. I'm just going to repeat it. And let's play this. So I hear like the turnaround. You want to have something maybe a little bit more fun here. Dun, bun, doo 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 bun. Doo dun dun doo doo. know, it doesn't matter. Like I just mess around with it until I like it, basically. There's no rules to this. I mean, you got guys out there with Grammys and plaques and all sorts of stuff, and they don't go by rules, man. Like they just do stuff. You just create, okay? So I'm gonna try this little turnaround. Let's hear it. Now, like, you know, pretty catchy, pretty whatever, right? Like very simple though. Like it's a simple progression. And I want you to like be aware of when you're writing, you don't need to go in and like go crazy with production. Here's the problem with that. Like, and this happens a lot, and this is something I wanted to like kind of point out as a massive part of a tip for you guys to write better songs and go like write good songs. Like that should be the key. That should be the fundamental of everything you're doing, is writing great songs, right? So don't go down the rabbit hole of production. Don't go like producing and overproducing for something that's not even a good song. Like straight up, like you waste so much time just sitting there like, oh man, I gotta layer in this, and I gotta do this, and I gotta do that, and the drums just aren't hitting yet. You know, I gotta mix them better, and they gotta, like, dude, this is plenty to write to. You know what I mean? Like, you need to start figuring out like the melody and the lyrics. Okay, most important thing in any song: the melody, lyrics, the delivery, the performance of the singer. If you're just a songwriter and you want to get a different singer on the stuff, great. If you're a singer-songwriter and you want to sing this stuff, and you want to songwrite, and you want to produce, and you want to, you know, the list goes on, great, fine, do that. And I think that's always awesome. But at the end of the day, I just want to like really warn you against like going and just keeping and producing, like when you don't even have a melody down, you don't have a lyric idea, you don't have anything, like you just need something to write to. So it's really important to get, and like my number one rule, get to the writing as fast as possible. Okay, super important. So here I'm just gonna like I'm actually going to turn this around separately. Like it'll be the second time around, basically. So it'll be like an 8-bar loop, right? So now I got this. I'm just going to delete those, and I'm going to repeat this. So now it sounds something like this. And then another thing, like I always experiment right away, like just humming on it and then figuring out, do I like the bass up here? Do I want it down there? Like, right? Just start singing and finding out lyrical ideas. That's what we want to get to. We want to get to the writing, okay? So I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it down. And I'm just going to try, you know, humming over that, right? No, right? Like instantly I know that's too low. So I bring it back up. So important part also is like the swing of the bass. You know, when I want the, like sometimes you want just the vocal doing the swing, and you want everything else just very like robotic. So you can let the vocal do its thing over the top, and you have a fundamental foundation for it, right? But for me, like it just depends. It always depends. But like this is plenty to write to. So now, and I'm just giving you guys like with this video because songwriting is pretty deep. It's not like I could just give you, oh, here's how you write a song right here, right now. Here's the full thing. You know, we're not throwing together trap beats here. We're trying to write a great song, right? So this will be the first live of many lives that I do on songwriting, because I want to like really show you kind of like the fundamentals of how you would start a track, right? So this is kind of like the beginning, and I don't edit. I don't think too much. I just kind of like go at it, and then I start writing lyrical ideas. And I got synths in front of me, and I got guitars around me, and a bass, and I got, you know, sounds all up in my computer that I could just reach to. I got Splice on deck, you know, like you can reach to so many things to be inspired and to keep the song going. So that's kind of like the first thing I do is I come up with a melody, I come with a verse, right? And I like that idea of it being like, da, 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 like right in that vocal range. And then when it goes to the chorus, it can like go, da, 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 you know. Just figure it out, right? So right away, like I know right away I can just loop this. I don't need anything else. I don't need it to change. I just need to focus on writing, okay? So then when it comes to this part, now I can come into the chorus. Like a really good, like easy technique is to come into the chorus and maybe make the notes more legato on the bass, right? So very simple. So just bum, ba-dum, ba-dum, right? So that's all I'm thinking. I'm like, okay, so that's my first note, right? So it's an E, right? To an E to an F sharp, right? E, F sharp, D. E, F sharp, D. That's literally to A. Okay, E, F sharp, D, A, right? So I got E, F sharp, D, A. Okay, or A, right? So now I'm gonna do like the chorus bass, which I totally just deleted the wrong notes, right? Okay, but you can see where I'm at here. So I just come in here, and you could easily just tweak this with MIDI. I just like playing it because it feels better to just play it for me. Okay, so I'll just delete that pattern right there, and I go. Okay, so now let's record that in. Very simple. There's some obvious latency here that I'm kind of battling against, but quantize is your friend, right? So just quantize this, and let's play this. Right? Don't spend too much time on this. Like, don't sit there and like tweak the MIDI notes and like get it perfect. Like, no, you need something that someone can write over. Even like if you're in a session right now and you got a writer right here, like you want to be, hold on, dude, hold on. No, you keep the flow going, right? Like there's a big difference between, you know, and you hear this all over the internet. It's like huge difference between beat maker and music producer. Okay, music producer can keep the flow going. They can pull the best out, like, yo, and then we can go into this and we can go into that, and they can just flow, and they can edit as they're going, right? Like the artist steps out of the room and they're like, edit, fix that thing that's driving me crazy, do that, you know, quick, and, you know, throw an EQ on this, get that bass to jam a little bit harder, etc. Like, you know, the writer goes out of the room, you can come in here and be like, okay, all right, now I just need to I need to fatten up this bass, and it's driving me crazy that the tone's just not right? So I'm just gonna scoop out this, and I'm gonna, do this stuff real quick. Like I want to fatten up this, give it a little bit more girth there, and then I want to, throw a decapitator on it. And like, you don't want to be doing this stuff when your writer's here and you're trying to write a song. Or when you're trying to write a song, and you're the writer, right? Because you're all of a sudden you're in this rabbit hole of producing something that just sucks. It's not even a good song anyway, right? So you need to get to that point where you're writing the music. So right here, I'm just going to drive this a little bit, throw the Neve on it, put the tone a little dark, and give it some vibe, and then distort it or compress it a little bit, right? And you don't need much. You just grab the compressor built into Logic. I use a ton of stock plugins. They're great. And then you could easily just use grab a stock thing like guitars. You got a bass in here. Here's a DI bass, right? So let's hear this now. Okay, so there you go. You literally have the foundation right here to write a verse going into a chorus. And if you want to get really tricky or whatever, you can start building out an intro part. You can start building out, the intro goes to the verse, goes to a pre-chorus, goes to a chorus. And you can literally just start writing and get ideas, right? So for me, I already have an idea just hearing this, right? It's very obvious to me. You want this indie rock kind of pop thing. And I would even I'll end up putting guitars on it, right? I hear the guitar. I hear just counter stuff that you would have the vocal dancing around, or it would be dancing around the vocal. The vocal is the center, right? The center of focus always should be. Everything else should be not distracting, but should feel like glue around the vocal and should support the vocal melody, the lyric idea, the storytelling. What are you talking about, right? I talked about midnight, a midnight love affair, you're my midnight, the last thing. I can't go past midnight without you, stuff like that, right? You just need a melody, a lyric in there, I can't go past midnight without you. I know. You're my bird. You're my bird. And then you got vocals stacked in there, I can't. Get the melodies down. It's very simple. There's my chorus, right? And then just plugging in lyrics and plugging in the vibe and the sound of it. It's it sounds like to me, I live in Los Angeles. I'm up the street in the Hollywood Hills, up the street from Hollywood Boulevard, right? And Sunset and stuff and the Strip. And it's it just feels to me model girls going out to some fucking shitty place that you really don't want to be, that has super expensive martinis for no reason, and they can't even make a martini. They're yeah, martini, okay, we got vodka, cool, but and you just don't want to be there, a really pretentious place. So maybe this song is about a super pretentious girl or super pretentious guy, or super pretentious like love affair, or, you know, a night out where you're like, you know, I never want to go out again or something like that. Like I try to just figure out the story. And a lot of times you can pull the story from your life. You can pull the story from other people's lives. And I think that that's really like the powerful thing about songwriting is you don't have to have your own story. You just have to be filled with ideas and stories. So like your friend may be going through a lot, you know, your friend may have just had a conversation with your friend and they're like, yo man, I'm going through a lot and I'm breaking up with this girl, or like, you know, this thing happened, or this girl ended up being a terrible girl. And let me tell you what happened, tell you a story, and you got a song, you know, like you can write the song and the story about your friend's encounter with this girl that was terrible. Right. So that's just kind of like scratching the surface of songwriting. But of course, like I'm on here for 35 minutes already, and I just want this like live to be really structured about getting to the writing, getting to the lyrics, getting to the melody as fast as possible, making a song, telling a story, and having something engaging. And if you don't like it, you don't go down the rabbit hole of producing something, mixing and mastering it, making all these effects and all this bullshit, because nobody fucking cares about it, because it's a stupid song and it sucks. And like you hate it, you know, you're like, I didn't have any ideas for that. It doesn't even fit my range. Okay. And like, you know, if you guys have any questions, just drop them in the comments. I'm happy to answer questions about songwriting, producing, mixing, mastering. I've been doing all of this for over 20 years now. I know I got the baby face, but I am 37 years old. You know, like I started making music and getting into production at 16 years old, right? And this was way before like Instagram and you can get on YouTube live. It's impossible back then, right? With what, a 56K dial-up modem, you know, just wouldn't work out. But, you know, I really want this to be something that inspires you and keeps you going with the songwriting process, and not getting down a rabbit hole of having to understand music theory or get really good at guitar, or I got to get great at keys. No, you don't. You need to like just literally throw down something that keeps you inspired. The most important thing about songwriting is staying inspired. Keep yourself motivated and inspired, and like making stuff and creating and going, whoa, okay, this is sick. Oh my God, I'm telling my story and this feels good and it's about this and it makes me want to dance. And like, you want to get in that mode, you know, you want to get vibed out. You don't ever want the flow to stop. And that's why I'm talking about this, and that's why I'm doing this live, is because I wanted you guys to really understand like how important it is to never let the flow stop. You can't let the flow stop with songwriting. Like you have to, if the artist is sitting here with you or a songwriter sitting here with you and you're a music producer, you want to be the continuing stream of what do you got, bouncing ideas and like moving forward and editing quick, and like not sitting here and mixing and mastering and like dialing a bass tone for an hour, right? The songwriter's like, dude, get me out of here. I could just do this myself and it'd be so much easier, right? So like get chords down, get a vibe down, get a tempo down, get drums down, arrange it out, get a verse down, get a chorus, structure it, put a thing in there, and then like have the songwriter, they're singing the whole time. I mean, shit, a lot of the best songs I've ever written were like over like a chord progression that I like just put in from like, you know, dragged in like MIDI, you know, the MIDI pack, you know, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Like grab stuff from Splice and start putting it together. Like you can jump into Splice, you can jump into a MIDI pack, you can put chords down, and you can start writing. You need to write. You need to get the song and the story and the idea down. And I think honestly, personally, that this is the biggest problem in music right now, is that the music is just getting diminished because people are making these beats and making these tracks all the way out, and they're not thinking about lyrics, and they're not thinking about storytelling or melodies or anything. And then like people that are grabbing these beats, they're just locked into whatever this beat is, and they're just like writing random shit over the top or freestyling over the top and then just putting out the song. And I'm telling you right now, you can't build a music career that way. This is not 2002 and you're not Lil Wayne. Okay, I'm gonna be really, really upfront. Like, it's a different time now, right? Like, I'm gonna do a whole podcast on this idea of what's going on with Spotify, and Spotify actually going in and finding botted, gassed up songs that have like multiple streams that are not real streams. They're from like botted playlists and stuff, and literally taking them down, taking them off of the distribution platform. That's crazy to me, right? But that's what's happening because the songwriting, like nobody's writing their own songs, and then they're just like shitting out stuff, and before it's even finished, they want to get to the finish line and they just want to put it out, and then it's not mixed and it's not mastered, and they're not a mixing and mastering engineer, and they're not spending time on the songs and the lyrics. They're just like making this beat and making it hit really hard and all this shit, and it's like they're putting it out, and then they're like, dude, I want streams too, and I want marketing. Okay, so they pay a Spotify botted playlist thing service, right? And then that playlist goes and puts it on a bunch of botted shit. And the problem with it is that now it's actually getting to the point where these distributors, these platforms, the DSPs, right? The digital service providers, the Spotify's, the Apple Music, they're now curating it because it's getting so junked up. It's like a fucking flea market, and you got all these people just dumping shit on there. So now they're like, dude, we have to do something about this. So now they're finding songs that are gassed up, and they're deleting them off the platform. I mean, shit, Instagram's been doing this, right? Facebook's been doing this. Their algorithm gets updated. The bots get fake followers, botted programs, likes and comments, etc. They're going to destroy this stuff over and over again. So what's my point? Why am I even talking about that? That's a whole podcast, okay? But my point is the songwriting, the actual records, your ability to move somebody, to make somebody feel something or get involved in your storytelling, to tell a story. Like, do you want to watch a Star Wars movie that has a terrible story or plot or anything like that? Like, no, of course not. So why do you feel like you should be able to just shit out music and then go pay some marketing botted shit to like blast it up? Like, it doesn't, real world doesn't work like that. Like, this is music, this is art, this is culture, this is taste. So get into the flow of writing songs, get into the flow of making great melodies, strong melodies, and focus on that number one. That should be your 100% your only goal. And you should stay inspired and moving forward and keeping the flow of the songwriting coming out. And have constant like notes. Like, I do notes all the time on my phone. Like, I'll be like, oh, I love this concept. I had this conversation. I'm like, yo, she dyed her hair to cover up her insecurities or something, right? Like I like I'll hear something in a conversation, I'll find like a quote or I'll find like a phrase and I'll just write it down. Or like I'll have a melody idea. I'll wake up in the morning, have coffee, and I'm like walking around the kitchen, like and I'm like, okay, maybe that's a guitar line. Maybe that's on the synth, you know? Right? Okay, I'm like, oh. Okay. And then I got something to work from, right? Like, oh, like listen to my stuff. I'm like, oh, that's sick. I should make that. Oh, like a drum pattern. I'll be like, and I'm like, oh my God. And then when I sit down on my computer, I got something. Right? So you want the flow to be constant. And focus on the songwriting. This is just live number one out of many on songwriting, and it's the basics. It's the fundamentals. It's getting a chord progression down, a drum and bass line, and just writing to it, right? And getting the melody down. Because once you have the melody down, then the melody will tell you what chords to use, right? Because in the chords, you'll find the third, the fifth, the seventh, the root, and you'll start to, you know, maybe it's a sus, maybe it's a sixth, right? Like you can start to figure out like, oh, okay, now I can make this chord over this melody because I'm singing the third of this chord. Or maybe I want to go and use the fifth of this chord, and that's where my melody's at. And you can just like shape chords around your melodies, and I love that. So anyway, if you guys like this, hopefully you did, and it was helpful, and it's getting you motivated or inspired to go write songs, like it, you know, share it with someone, drop comments. I see Smooth as Ice. Yeah, dude, I appreciate that, man. Thank you. He says, great live. That's what's up. That's my guy. So I'm going to add it right there. And then Shane, what's up, man? You know, so thank you guys for jumping in and joining me. You know, it's been a journey. Like making music is a journey. It's It's something you want to work at every day. You want to create something that's unique to you. You want to be happy with what you're doing. And I think the quickest way to become a great songwriter is to write a lot of songs, right? But focus on the melodies and the lyrics. And that's really the point of this video. Focus on the melodies and lyrics, and really, really get involved in that rather than like tweaking EQs and compressors, you know, and diving down this production hole where you don't have an actual song, you know, because you can get chords down and you can write a song and a melody and lyrical thing, and it can take you on the journey to then, and then it needs this pre-chorus thing. It'll like tell you what to do, and then you can put the chords down, then you can put the production around it, right? Like your focus should be making great songs, and I have to do this live because I want to hear better songs coming out, right? Like it's 2021, it's time to step the song and the record community back up to where it was in its golden age. Like we need better music out there. So I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much. Go check out the podcast, the Radium podcast. I'm going to drop a new one tomorrow morning. Check out the plugin of the week. I'm trying to bring you guys content every single week. I want it to be great. I want you guys to get what you want out of it. So I'm always open for suggestions. Drop some comments on anything you suggest I do content on. I talk about, whether it's music production, audio engineering, mastering, mixing, recording techniques, right? Theory, understanding songwriting, or even vocal production. I've done that for so many artists. I did vocal production for Tegan and Sarah. I've done it for, I've been in sessions with GoTA. I've been in sessions with great artists and rappers, and I'm just excited to kind of share all this stuff with you guys because I'm not a YouTuber, but I'm loving this platform because I can really share this stuff with you guys. And the more you get involved, the more I'll get involved, basically. So appreciate you guys. Hey, peace, man. Really appreciate it. Have a great day. It's Monday. Get back to work. Go write a song.